Welcome, distinguished guests, and a special welcome to Your Excellencies, the Secretary General of the Ministry, our local mayor, and the representatives of our participatory bodies. I would also like to welcome them especially. Today you will learn more about the water-food connection and its role in food security. And food security is a hot topic. For a little over €4.95 you can buy a no farmer, no food sticker in the Agri-Fen shop. And for a little under €13 you can buy no farmer, no food pair of sunglasses. And if you want to go Dutch, you can buy a no boer, no voer Dutch black hoodie. And the fact that food security is an urgent topic and food production is also reflected by the fact that the farmer has regained a prominent position in our politics and that the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Nature is now renamed into Agriculture, Fisheries, Food Security and Nature. But what do we mean with food security? And why is it suddenly such a hot topic here in the Netherlands and in Europe? And how do we ensure that we are food secure? Since the dawn of humanity, food security has been our priority number one, logically. But as the humanity learned to better control food production, it became natural for many of us not to worry about it anymore every day. But unfortunately, not for everyone. And that is why we defined globally the Sustainable Development Goal number 2. A world free of hunger in 2030. And we are nowhere that goal yet, unfortunately. Not because we cannot produce enough food globally, but because we cannot distribute it in a fair and equitable manner. But food security goes far beyond availability of enough food, of enough calories for all of us. As defined by the 1996 World Food Summit, food security is only achieved when everybody, every day, has physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, nutritious food that meets the dietary needs and your preferences for a healthy and active life. So, food security is an urgent topic and it deserves our attention. But why did it suddenly hit the headlines in the no food sticker on the Agri-Fen shop? One of the triggers may have been the corona pandemic, when panic-induced hoarding suddenly made that not only toilet paper but also pasta and sugar was not available in our shop shelves everywhere, every day anymore. And so suddenly also in the rich Western countries we realized that food systems are interconnected and that we should not take food for granted as we always do. And not long after this pandemic, Russia invaded Ukraine, and we suddenly became to realize that we are quite dependent for our wheat and edible oils for the production in Ukraine. And this time, there was real concern about food security, particularly for the most vulnerable groups in Northern Africa, also exacerbated by the fact that prices of energy and fertilizer had hiked. But now, how did we come from these triggers and these facts to the role of the farmer in the no farmer, no food sticker? It is undeniable that the farmer is at the beginning of every food chain. Our farmers are the basis of our food production. They produce high-quality products that feed us and in the Netherlands also play an important role in our exports. But this does not explain why they suddenly are connected to the risk of the concern of food security risks. The large-scale campaigns behind the merchandise suggest that our current policies, like in the Netherlands, the nitrogen regulations, and in Germany, the VAT on diesel, and the imports of food from Ukraine, which are perceived as unfair by some, particularly in Spain, for example, that they are a threat to farming. that they bring the farmer at the brink and in that way threaten our food security. And what unites all farmers' protests in Europe is the mountain of regulations and red tape to which they have to adhere. And the fact that they feel that they do not get the appreciation they want for the work they do. But as real as these grievances may be, there's no evidence that any of these policies cause food insecurity. The science is clear. Global food production is threatened by two things. Conflict, and the effect of conflict is mainly on logistics, on distribution, and climate change. In the longer term, the population growth in Africa specifically does pose a challenge to our food production, especially in Africa. In the short term, it's conflict which is the biggest threat. If we look at places in the world where there's too little to eat nowadays, where there's hunger, it is Yemen, it's Sudan, and it's Gaza, causing horrible food shortages. It is used as a means of war. For us, it is reassuring that we are in quite a good shape to cope with the geopolitical effects on our food security. For real self-sufficiency, we should become less dependent on fertilizer imports and on feed imports. And we might have to reconsider our consumption of coffee and avocados. But things are more complex when we consider the other serious threat, climate change. To cope with the effect of climate change, we really have to change our ways. And in this respect, I would also like to mention the importance of biodiversity. Because without genetic diversity, we cannot adapt to the changes in the climate we already see and which will come. We need genetic biodiversity. We need heat, drought, water and salt tolerance, wild varieties to adjust to what is coming. Not to mention the much wider and deeper importance of biodiversity and nature for us as humanity and for us as a planet. So the focus we now seem to have on food security is right. We must work to ensure it in every facet. So we also must face the effects of climate change. And when we talk about the impact of climate change on food production, water is central. Without water, we cannot grow crops, we cannot water our livestock, we cannot prepare food. Our access to safe drinking water and sufficient fresh water is needed to irrigate our farmland and to have sufficient drinking water. And more than 70% of all fresh water we use today globally is used for the production of food, demonstrating the dependency of our agriculture for fresh water availability. And it is precisely this resource, water, that is under increasing pressure. The impact of climate change on water supply is already visible also in the Netherlands today. We have seen the effects of a dry summer on agriculture, but also on nature. And we see in Europe already the effects on drinking water availability. And at the same time, climate change increases the frequency of excess water events, like we have seen in Limburg and we have seen this spring, also threatening our food production. Salinisation, the intrusion of salt water in rivers and ditches and through seepage to our groundwater, exacerbates this problem, especially in the coastal areas, threatening the fertile deltas in this world and their food production, fertile deltas like the Netherlands. So today I would like to offer a podium to two exceptional researchers from Wageningen who will demonstrate the role of the water-food nexus in food security, globally and in Europe. They will show what we can learn from their research and how we can think about sensible policies to cope with this. Today you will learn that global water systems are under stress, with potentially serious consequences. The majority of our staple crops like wheat, rice, maize, soya are produced in a handful of countries. Hester Biemans will show how vulnerable food production is to water insecurity in any of those countries, and therefore how vulnerable our food production is to climate change. As always, the poorest are the first and the biggest victims. There are countries in this world where people have to spend up to 40% of their income to have enough food. And for comparison, in the Netherlands, that's around 8%. So you can imagine that if anything goes wrong in the food system, it is likely that there will be social unrest in these countries, coming to conflict, the other serious threat to food security. So it's clear that we need to act. The future of our food supply depends on how well we can prepare to new realities. Today, Wieke Pot will explain to us that we need forward-looking thinking and forward-looking policies to redesign how we use water. She will introduce some ingredients to stimulate long-term capacity of policymakers to steer that change. The Dutch government has already made a beginning of change in our food system, future-proofing it by investing in sustainable techniques and to help farmers to innovate. But it is just the beginning. We really have to change our ways. Climate change and water systems are global issues. We need global solutions. So let us work together globally to work to a future where there is food and water for everyone. Not here, but everywhere. Not only now, but for the generations to come. There's no time to waste. So for the Agri-Fan shop, I would like to suggest them to change their payoffs. I would like to see on the cups, on the hoodies and on the sunglasses, no change, no water, no food. Or when we want to go Dutch, geen actie, geen water, geen eten meer later. Dank u wel.